Hi, I'm Dan Schmitt. I do a motorcycle racing TV show called Team Chicago Challenge. My email is teamdan45@gmail.com. My website is teamchicago.tv. I'm up here in Milwaukee, outside of Milwaukee. I'm at the Computer Doctor shop. My good friend Ted Kieper. We're going to sit down, we're going to talk about the grand old days of racing. Ted got into racing in the late 1960s. I got in 1970. I met Ted at Santa Fe Speedway. He's got an interesting story about racing motorcycles and then jumping motorcycles. We're going to show you pictures. We're going to talk about the Inter-Am race in Elkhorn in 1971, 1970. But my email is teamdan45@gmail. I'd love to hear from my audience. And let's see what Ted Kieper's got to say. He's a very interesting guy.
I'm Ted Kieper. Currently live in Pewaukee, Wisconsin, Waukesha County, and I own Computer Doctor. I've been in the computer business for 40 years as of this year. Prior to that, I had a motorcycle shop in Milwaukee called Competition Cycle Center. We specialize in dirt bikes and motocross bikes and machining and welding. Currently, I also am in the drone business. I sell DJI camera drones, but I also sell motorcycle lifts for repairing motorcycles and working on them. So I got involved in desert racing when I was in the Air Force in 1962 about. And so I got a lot of experience racing, desert racing in Southern California and Southern Nevada. I was stationed at Nellis Air Force Base in Las Vegas, Nevada for 4 years, 1960 to 64.
You did the desert racing when you were in the Air Force, and you were stationed in Southern California and Nevada. So you come back, you get out of service. What got you into racing locally? Did you go dirt racing? Did you do flat track racing? What inspired you to get into motorcycle racing?
Well, once I got discharged from the Air Force and I came back to the Milwaukee area, I had to find a job and to make money to buy another racing motorcycle. So I got a job at a motorcycle dealership in West Dallas, and I talked the owner into letting me take a brand new BSA A65 out of the crate and make it into a dirt tractor, and that's what I did. So then I went scrambling. That was in 1965, and I did really well because I had a lot of desert racing experience. I mean, several years of riding in the desert.
So what'd you ride in the desert?
I started out with a 650 Triumph TR6 single carburetor desert sled built by, I think Bud Eakins built that bike originally. So it was a really, really nice desert bike, and I did really well in southern Nevada.
So desert racing would be 50-mile races?
Well, we did hare scrambles, and we did hare and hounds, and we did scrambles racing. Scrambles was just a short course where you made multiple laps. Hare scrambles is typically 3 40 or 50-mile laps over the same course, and a hare and hound is like a 100 to 175-mile course, all virgin terrain, so you never know what's ahead. And what they do is a few days before the race, they go around, they put splotches of lime, you know, where you're supposed to go, and you just follow the lime markings. So you don't know what's over the next hill. So if you press the hill at 80 miles an hour and there's nothing but a drop off, you're in trouble. And it has happened. But that's really exciting racing, but it's very dangerous because you can lay out there for.
So what age were you then?
Oh, I would have.
When you went into the Air Force?
I joined the Air Force when I was 17. So by age 19 is when I started desert racing.
Okay, then you come back here and you run some scrambles.
So I got into scrambles, I was doing really well.
So the A10 BSA is a pre...
A65.
Is it a pre-unit or unit?
Yeah, that would have been a 66. I think it was a 65.
So it's a unit engine.
It's a unit construction,
Right.
and it ran really good.
Right.
And I did very well. I mean, I instantly became the guy to beat here in the open class in scrambles.
And what tracks had scrambles then?
Well, I ran Atwater, I ran Fond du Lac, I ran, I forget the name of the.
So those were clubs that had scramble tracks.
Right, this was just scrambles.
Right.
Yeah.
So then, when did you decide to get a license and go through that?
66. I was a first year novice. My only year was 1966 as a novice, and that's when.
Did you have to have a 250 then, or no?
Yeah, 250s.
Okay.
Yeah, novices were limited to 250s, and that's what I ran at Santa Fe. So I just went to Santa Fe every Wednesday night, and I just got a little better and a little better every time I went. I practiced hard, and I ran scrambles as much as I could. So back then, we could race 4 or 5 times a week. Wednesday night, Friday night, Saturday.
Because you could run half miles too.
Yeah, I was
'Cause
running half miles as a novice.
almost every fair back then
Yep.
had a motorcycle race at it.
Yeah, there was a lot of venues to race in within a 100 or 200 mile radius of Milwaukee. So this was the racing capital of the world for a while.
Okay, so you're novice in 66. Do you make junior in 67?
I made amateur. It was called.
Well, amateur then, right.
Not junior. Junior was a designation they applied later. But I was an amateur in 67. And then April 17th, 1967, I traveled to Pekin, Illinois. And I got there late, and I talked the referee into let me sign up late, and I didn't have any practice. First race, I didn't know the course. I should have just followed somebody else, but not me. I had to win. I swooped over the first hill at about 80 miles an hour, and there was about a 15-mile-an-hour corner at the bottom of the hill. And I went through the fence at about 70, end over end, right through the pits. Landed right at the back of my own truck, my own van, laying there. And I looked down, and my left leg was normal, and my right foot heel was up, and my toes were down, and I thought, I have a problem. So I reached down, and I grabbed my foot, and I twisted it back up, and then I passed out from the pain. I woke up there alone, man, in an ambulance with my dog licking me, my dog. And a boxer. So they carried me off to the hospital in Pekin, Illinois. I didn't even make one lap at that track, but that track is still running now. I'm on their Facebook list, so.
So that ended that year for you.
Well, that ended it for about 6 weeks.
Right.
What I did is I decided I wanted to go racing, so that was April, May, first part of June. I decided to get rid of the cast, so I slammed it in the door. My wife's T-bird had these big doors. I just kept slamming it and slamming it. So the cast broke, and I went to my doctor. I said, "Hey, doc, the cast is broke, so it's time to come off." He said, "Yeah, I see that." So he cuts the cast off, and then he's starting to prepare the mix to make a new cast. I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm making a new cast." I said, "Oh, I don't want a new cast. It's good, it's healing good. I'll just rest, I'll lay around, I won't do anything. Just don't put a cast on." And he said, "Well, I shouldn't do this, but okay." Well, a week later I went racing. I couldn't put any weight on it. I was on crutches. I went to Wisconsin Rapids to a scrambles, and Wisconsin Rapids track was all sand. So I had my cousin Denny pushed the bike out there to the starting line for me. I came out on my crutches, and I got on the bike, and I won the race. I just didn't have to use my right foot very much. So I just kept on racing. But that
So did you make your expert points that year or no?
no, I just missed expert.
'Cause you needed 80 points.
I needed 80 points, and I had like 70 something.
Right.
And my last race of the season was a TT, professional TT in Dayton, Ohio. And that was an interesting race because I was the fastest amateur qualifier, and Bart Marco was the fastest expert qualifier. And we each got a watch. We each got a watch for being the fastest qualifier. And so it's the only time I ever got a watch with Bart Markle, and I had known him. I talked to him several times.
So did you win that race though, or no?
I won the race, and he won the expert main. And the controversy was that Bart had thrown his license away previously, the week before, because he was in California with Freddie Nix, and they had rented some ATVs or some dune buggies, and they were.
That's when Freddie Nix got killed.
Freddie Nix got killed
Right.
on his dune buggy, and Bart said, "I'm through with racing. I threw my license away. I'm quitting." And then he shows up at this race in Ohio
And wins.
And at the riders' meeting, I think it was Bill Boyce was the referee at the time. He says, "Look, nobody objects, I'm going to let him ride without his license. And we all said, yeah, let him ride.
Right.
Because he wasn't in my class. But anyway, he wound up winning the race without a license, and I won the amateur race, and it was a good day. That was a fun track.
All right, so then a year later you made expert.
So yeah, then over the winter and spring, I got to know Bob Hansen, and I got to ride with Bob Hansen on one of his beautiful orange Gold Stars. So then it was between me and Mike Anderson that whole year who was going to be the top amateur in the nation. And I don't remember which it was, him or me, but we're still friends to this day. As an amateur, it was fun going to the races with Bob Hansen because he was so tight. He would never pay to get into the pits. So he'd get out, we'd be in line getting in the pits, and he'd get out of the van, and he'd start schmoozing and talking to all the people, and everybody knew him. He talked to all the officials, and the next thing I know, he'd show up in the pits with his pit pass, but he never paid to get in. I don't know how he ever did that, but I had to pay. So it was a real adventure riding for him because everybody knew him, and the expectation was that I was supposed to do well. So I don't remember how I did. I don't think I won that particular one, but it was fun riding for him, and we were always competitive.
But as an expert, did you ride for Bob Hansen too?
No, I only rode that 1 year
As an amateur?
As an amateur.
Okay.
After that, he stopped doing dirt track for a while, and he went to.
Because he went
with Dick Mann. He won Daytona.
Right, he went.
71.
That's right. He went. He became with Honda and the road racing because he had the 450s he was working on, and then the 750s.
Right.
Right.
So I
okay.
saw
So what did you do as your first year as expert then?
Well, my first year as expert, I didn't go to many nationals because I had a lot of other business interests that I was doing. I was working on my pilot's license and doing a lot of other
Oh
stuff.
yeah, because you were flying also.
And my business was doing really well. The motocross business was getting really well, so I started riding professional motocross. So I was dividing my time between dirt track, motocross, flying, and then I got married and had kids. And
So this is 1970. Was a very busy year.
yeah,
71.
1970, 71. Then 71, I started jumping cars.
So how did that come about? Tell me,
Well,
what inspired you to start jumping
Well, I
cars?
ran into Evel Knievel at Daytona in 1970, I think it was. I was talking to him for a while, and I thought to myself, man, if he can do that, I can do that. So I just decided I was going to jump cars. And then I wound up having a guy by the name of John Harding come to work for me. He was from the Green Bay area, and he had previous experience in car thrill shows, automotive thrill shows.
Oh, really?
And so we come up with this idea to build takeoff ramps and jump and landing ramps for the motorcycle. And we put some acts together, and we actually set up a motorcycle thrill show. We traveled all over the Midwest putting on this all motorcycle thrill show. We did day shows and night shows. We prefer the night shows because we did a lot of pyrotechnics and fireworks and stuff, and it's only good at night.
So what he did something also? Was it something besides your jumping or the thrill shows?
Well, yeah, we had a boardwalk crash where we crashed through a boardwall on our front straightaway. It was on
Right,
fire. And we had a slide for life deal where John would lower himself off the bike and I'd ride the bike, and then he'd slide through the fire on a
With-
leather pad and
Oh, okay.
get up and wave to the crowd as he exited the fire.
And you got the bike shop by now. You got Competition Cycles.
Oh, yeah.
Your Boltaco dealer also.
I was a Boltaco dealer. We were selling about 125 Boltacos a year.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of.
So you were one of the biggest dealers.
Yeah, we were the biggest off-road dealer in the Midwest at that time.
Wow.
We were selling a lot of
So,
motorcycles.
so you didn't really have that much time.
Yeah,
So
my
when I
time-
would
was a
see
break.
you would probably come down to Santa Fe to do the TTs more than doing the every Wednesday night show.
Yeah, I mostly hit the TTs, and I did as many of the Wednesday nights as I possibly could.
Right, right.
I always made the TTs. And one thing about me with the TTs in 1968, I won the Santa Fe TT on a BSA, I won it on a Triumph, and I won it on a Boltaco, and I won it on an American Eagle.
So with 4 different brands, you
Different
won
brands.
Santa Fe?
I won every TT at Santa Fe in the in the amateur class that year. I won every one of them.
Wow.
And I also won the, they had a daytime TT. It's September 15th. It's the only daytime motorcycle race they ever had there. And I won the feature on that was my Triumph TT special.
Okay, so of all the bikes you've owned, what's your favorite? Anything you can think of?
They were all fun. I don't know that I had a favorite.
Okay, let's go back.
I enjoyed winning with the Boltancos because I was a dealer, and that directly affected my business.
Right, all right, so let's talk about the jumping a little bit more. So of all your jumps, so you had the thrill show, but then did you just do jumping alone without the thrill show?
After the first year of the thrill show, I decided I didn't want to travel with all those people anymore, so I walked
So it was a
away.
big deal.
It was a big deal, so I said, here, you can
Who
have it.
who did the booking and all that? Your
I had a
friend?
booking agent down in Danville.
Oh, okay, so someone was booking you.
Yeah, he was doing the conventions and booking me and all that stuff for the thrill show. I said, look, you can have the thrill show. I quit. I'm taking my trucks, I'm taking my bikes, I'm taking my ramps. You can have the people. I quit. So a couple years after I quit, they made a movie out of my thrill show called The Death Riders. It's still available on YouTube, or not on YouTube, but it's on eBay to purchase.
Oh, really?
Yep. So,
Okay, so over your jumps, and I'm going to show some pictures of different jumps. You said at Great Lakes Dragaway you'd be there for 3 days?
Yeah, I did a lot of 3-day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or
And that's right here in Union Grove, Wisconsin,
yeah,
so it's
Saturday,
not
Sunday,
far.
Monday, and I do 5 cars on Saturday, 6 cars on Sunday, and 7 cars on Monday. So the same people would come back and see if I'd make it or not. You know, I like to think they all wanted me to make it, but they just didn't want to miss it if I didn't.
So your longest jump, so you never did, what's your longest, 8
7
cars?
cars.
7 cars.
I do 5, 6, or 7 cars.
And you were using a 360,
These were-
325 Boltaco,
No,
or?
it's a 250 Boltaco.
Okay.
An M68 250
Okay.
Boltaco. And these were full-size cars, no compacts. These were full-size cars.
Right.
So I don't know, it was about 55 feet or so.
So did you tell me you once had a conversation with Evel Knievel after that?
Oh yeah, I ran into Evel Knievel again in Chicago. He was doing an indoor jump downtown.
At the amphitheater?
Yeah, I think at the amphitheater.
Right.
And by that time, my friend Roger Riemann was his tuner. So I know.
Oh, right, Roger, right.
So anyway, he introduced me to Evel again, and I said, yeah, we talked in Daytona. And he said, oh yeah, I remember it. In fact, I'm actually in Evel Knievel's book on page 161. He talks about me.
Okay.
So anyway, so then I decided, and then I decided that, well, I know I can do this now. So I was supposed to do an indoor jump at a Chicago Blackhawks game. I was going to do the first indoor jump on an ice rink during the intermission. And I don't know what killed it, but it just didn't, it never happened. But I guess they didn't want my spikes.
Because you were
I'd
right,
have to
you'd
run
have,
spikes. I'd have to run spikes to get traction.
right.
They didn't want the spikes on the ice.
Right.
But that would have been interesting because I could have got up to speed coming through the gate onto the ice, but I would have had a crash after I landed because I couldn't keep it under control and stop. So I would have had a
You would have had to lay it down.
yeah.
Okay. All right, so Ashland, which is a motocross track, and they also have a flat track. So you're the one that bounded that property or ran across it?
On the truck, I was flying a Cessna 150 with my next door neighbor, Rick Valheim, and we were following I-94, just flying around. And Rick said to me, hey, there's a gravel pit down there. It'd be a good place to ride our bikes. I said, oh yeah, let's take a look at it. So we circled around about 4 or 5 times. And I thought, boy, that is cool. And I figured out where we were. And the next day, Rick and I loaded up our dirt bikes and we went out there. I knocked on the door and I asked if we could ride our dirt bikes in the guy's gravel pit. He said, well, I don't care. I just rent a house and haven't done anything with the gravel pit for years. He said, yeah, go ahead. But he said, well, why would you want to? I said, well, it's fun. So we drove back there and rode our bikes. About 20 minutes later, we're zipping around and I see the guy standing on the hill watching us with his children in amazement. We're just zipping around out there having fun on our dirt bikes. So then a week or two later, I brought my brother and some other people out there. And we laid out a course and we started talking about, hey, this is pretty cool. A week or two after that, I brought a friend of mine, Dan Wright, who owned Empire Manufacturing Company in Wauwatosa. They make all those tools from Sears, levels and stuff like that. And I said, Don, this would be great. Why don't you buy the land and we'll start a club. We can all come riding here. Maybe we'll even put on a race. He said, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. I'll have my attorney look at it. Next week, Don bought the land, and then we formed a club, and we did a land contract to purchase the land back from Don, and we paid it off. I don't know.
So the club still exists, but you were part of the original.
I was the originator. Without me, it would have never happened.
Right.
So, and it's still running strong 50-some years later. I'm very proud of that.
Right.
And they've really improved the grounds they got.
And you're involved with the Interam races.
Yeah, I helped put on, I was the, in 1969, November 3rd, I think, there was the first interim at Elkhorn at the motocross track, the Slowpokes track. At that point, I was a referee for the Slowpokes Motocross Club. So I helped put that on, and I also competed in it. But that was an interesting story. I went to sign up with the FIM, and they said, the AMA has told us that you're a professional motorcycle racer, so you can't sign up. I said, what do you mean I can't sign up? But we don't want any professional riders. I said, well, these guys are here from the factories in Sweden. They're professional riders.
Right.
So he said, no. I said, okay. So everybody knew me, and nobody knew about this conversation. So when the big race was to go off, I just lined up with everybody.
And raced.
And I raced with them. I was running second until I crashed. But it was fun.
So what were you riding then?
I was riding my 360 Husky,
Oh, okay.
so open class.
So you rode motocross in the beginning, the early days. You rode flat track. You ice raced.
Oh yeah, I ran ice racing. There's a good story. We started out running on these snowmobile cleats that we bolted on our tires.
Right.
And that was fun. You'd slide around. But then we got bored with that, and a few of us put these long spikes on that you sharpen them to a needle point, like they've been running that in Europe.
In Europe, right.
And you could really go with those.
Right.
I mean, you didn't even have to shut off going into the corners. You just lay it over. In fact, I had to take the footrest off the left side of the bike because it was always hitting the ice. And I just put my foot up on the engine and just go around that corner. And there would be a spray of ice chips 100 feet in the air.
Well, did you ever race with screws, though?
I never ran with the screws. Later on,
Really?
they went to the
Sheet metal screws.
in the
That's
top.
all I ever run
Yeah,
with.
see, I had quit by then, but the spikes, that was the ultimate speed. Oh my God, you could really, much faster than dirt, much more traction than pavement.
Okay, so if anybody wanted to get a hold of you now and come up here, give me a website for the computer store. And
Google me, Ted Kieper, Google me. I'm on 12 pages in Google. Of different.
All right,
different
spell your
crazy
name
things
so they
I've done.
spell it right.
Kieper,
Okay,
pronounced Kieper like a zoo.
and and there's a website for the computer doctor.
Yeah, Computer Doctor website, my Kieper Cycle website is out there, my Waukesha Drones website is out there, so.
Anybody wants to get a hold of you, they want to come in and look at your pictures, they're invited to come up, right?
Oh, sure, I love talking about racing and motorcycles and in my life, all the crazy things I've done. I'm still alive. You know, there's a lot of guys that did jumping that, like Bob Gill, a friend of mine, Facebook, we talked back and forth, but he was paralyzed on his last jump. So he's been in a wheelchair for 50 years.
What happened to Super Joe Einhorn?
Einhorn? I don't know.
Did he die or?
I don't know.
Okay.
But if you go to cyclejumpers.com, you'll see I'm featured on cyclejumpers.com. And there's over 200 people that have
You'll jump, all right.
including some people from China,
Right.
including some ladies too.
So tell me about this bike real quick.
Well, this is a 1959 Sears Allstate made by Puch out of Austria. And this is identical to the first motorcycle I had back in 1969 when I turned 16. So I've been working on this off and on for 8 years, and it's just about ready to ride. And this is the most interesting motorcycle. When people come here to pick up lifts, they always want to look at this and talk about it because it's so unusual. But it's a high quality,
Yeah, it's a
Austrian
pressed steel frame.
yeah,
It's a
Austrian made.
twin two-stroke.
Twin two-stroke, 175 cc's. It'll go about 75 miles an hour after a little while.
So you bought one of these bikes when you were in California?
No, I bought, when I was still in Milwaukee, I just turned 16 right after I
Oh,
turned
before you
16.
went into service.
Before I joined the service, I had one just like this.
So did you buy this at Sears?
No, I bought it from a friend of my mother's who decided he wanted to sell it. And they sold for about $375 at the Sears stores.
Right, new.
New, yeah. Great motorcycle. They run forever.
Thank you, Ted, for a wonderful interview. You see some more footage from the Inter-Am race. I was there in 1971. Ted Kieper, racer, showman, flat track, motocross, jumper, pilot, and the computer doctor. Get a hold of him at ted@computerdrwis.com or give him a call at 262-542-1110. Waukesha, Wisconsin. Let him know you're coming to see him. He has plenty of great stories to tell, and I'm sure you'll enjoy every single one of them. To contact me, it's teamdan45@gmail.com. I love to hear from my audience. Remember, you can always search on YouTube at Dan Schmitt Motorcycle Racing for great motorcycle racing action. Dan Schmitt Politics to learn what makes America great. It was a great conversation with Ted. I learned quite a bit. He was a great racer, and he is a great friend. And I highly encourage you to visit the World of Motorcycle Museum off Indiana 39. They're in Winamac, Indiana, 4 miles south of North Judson. Give them a call first at 574-896-3172. It's a great trip and a great collection of motorcycles.